If you're someone who's constantly juggling responsibilities, you'll relate to Linda's story. At 54, Linda was running a business and caring for her family. Her health had taken a backseat and she felt drained and overwhelmed. Finding the Pursue Your Spark blueprint gave her the structure she needed to fit self-care back into her life. The small, achievable steps like incorporating movement into her day and practicing mindful eating helped her feel more energized and in control, even with her busy schedule. If you're like Linda and need a way to fit health into your packed day, check out the blueprint right here, and I'll leave a link in the show notes for you. Hey, it's Heike. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and today's episode is impactful. Whether you've been affected by cancer or know someone who has, this one's for you. Today's guest is the amazing Deb Krier, an entrepreneur, cancer advocate, and the founder of tryingnottodie.LIVE. After being diagnosed with stage 4 triple positive breast cancer in 2015 and thyroid cancer in 2023, Deb turned her challenges into a mission to help others take control of what they can control, improve their quality of life. In today's episode, Deb shares how she's moved beyond just being fine with cancer. You'll hear her powerful advice on taking back your voice, focusing on what matters, and living a fuller life no matter what. Stay with us because by the end of the episode, Deb will reveal one key strategy she used to take control of her health, something anyone can start doing today to feel more empowered in their journey. This is the Pursue Your Spark podcast, and I am Heike Yates. If you're feeling stuck in midlife, wondering, how did I get here? You're in the right place. We're all about real transformation, not quick fixes. My mission is to help you break free from limiting beliefs and outdated habits using fitness and wellness as tools for change. Each episode offers practical strategies for turning complex challenges into simple, actionable steps. So bring your yes, I can attitude and earbuds, and let's explore how you can truly thrive in midlife. Hi, everybody. I have my friend Deb Krier here today, and we met. I always love to share how I meet my guests, if possible, at Healthcare Amplified in Denver, Colorado, where we were at the Podfest conference.
Such fun, such fun.
And we both were presenting at Healthcare Amplified, and that's how we got to know each other. And I learned a little bit about Deb and her background. And since this month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I have her here to share with you her journey, but also give you tips and strategies of what to do when.
Right.
And before we dive in, I want to know from you, what does healthy living mean to you, Deb?
Well, I'll be honest. My health is a challenge, and so I try to be healthy, right? And I think that's the best we can do. I try to eat healthy, but I need some sugar every once in a while. But a little piece of candy as opposed to the big chocolate bar. I try and get as much exercise as I can. I live in Atlanta, and so sometimes that is a challenge because you can't get out and walk because it's you're going to melt. But you try to do the best you can. You try to get enough sleep. Like I said, we do have lots of stuff going on with me. I try really hard to, and my doctors all know this, to not take medicine. Now, yes, there are some times where you have to, and I do, but we try and, wean them off. And I try to do things as naturally as possible. Like even if I get, say, like a simple infection, I'm like, no, my body will fix it. I might be sick and snuffly a little longer, but that's better than taking some Uggy drug. Sometimes you need the Uggy drugs, but I try and just, think of my body first.
Yeah, but what you guys don't know yet, and I'm going to share this now about Deb, that she was diagnosed with stage 4 triple positive breast cancer in 2015 and thyroid cancer in 2023. So going as natural as possible can be tricky, I imagine.
Right. And I tell people, you have to decide what is going to work best for you. When I was first diagnosed, I went the very traditional route. Now, I also, many years ago, worked for an oncologist and I worked for the American Cancer Society. So I knew enough to be dangerous, right? But I chose the traditional route of chemo, surgery, radiation. That's not for everybody. And that's perfectly fine. And more importantly, I think a lot of times now, we do a combination. So we're adding in the nutritionist, we're adding in mental health, right? Because this is a pretty scary, ucky thing. We're adding in things like yoga, meditation, all sorts of other things, because everybody's cancer is different. Even if you have the exact same diagnosis, so your body's going to react different, but more importantly, your mindset is different. And you have to know that what you are doing is going to work best for you.
Can you share a deeply personal moment from your cancer journey that profoundly impacted your outlook on life? And how has cancer changed how you see yourself and your work?
Sure. It wasn't when I was diagnosed. When I was diagnosed, I was just annoyed. I mean, I quite literally told the doctor, I'm sorry, I don't have time for this. And she didn't know what to do. She was like, but, like I said, I did chemo. And with the type of cancer that I had, the treatment was 8 different drugs in one day. Massive dose. I mean, it took about a little over 8 hours to do it. I discovered that you can have lunch delivered to an infusion room. And I was fine for a couple of days, and then my world crashed. I got a complication that happens less than 1% of the time. And in the vast majority of times, it is fatal because you don't realize what's going on until it's too late. And what happened was I ended up in septic shock. Off I went to the hospital, compliments of an ambulance. And I remember hearing the doctors arguing over how fast I was going to die that day. The surgeon didn't want to do anything because he said there was no point. And the oncologist, who is this little cute blonde thing, got up in his face and said, "You will do this surgery." But I remember, and I'm actually in a slightly different room. They were out in the hall. And I remember thinking, excuse me, I get to vote. And there were 2 other times during the course of when I was dealing with this, very severe problem, that they had said, you're probably not going to make it. And I remember thinking, I get to pick. Now, maybe the pick would have been, okay, it's time. But that was when I thought, no, I am going to live every single day as best as I can for as long as I can.
I couldn't agree more. And it is mind-blowing when you have those 2 camps. The one's like, okay, let's give it a shot. This is going to work. And the other one's like, doomsday. This is not going to work. And you actually overhearing that conversation.
Well, and my husband, who, bless him, was of course right there next to me. He said it was a little bit different conversation, but he said that was what the gist of it was. And the funny thing is that surgeon, obviously he did save my life. I had to have another emergency surgery. He saved my life on that one. I did not like him. Didn't like him. And, he saved my life. He saved my life twice, but I fired him because he and I did not get along. And that's one of the things too, is you don't have to like them, but you have to trust them, especially if they're going to be a long-term care provider. And I didn't trust him. And I never knew what it was that he said that I just, and I don't know, maybe it was his entire demeanor, right? Where it was like, no. And then, the surgeon, that because I have my own general surgeon, I've had so many surgeries. I would walk on fire for that man. He is absolutely fabulous. His wife has breast cancer, so he gets it. And I think that is the thing, is you have to really trust that your medical care providers, whether it's traditional or non-traditional, that they are working on your behalf and not, oh, this is what the insurance company says, this is what the box I have to check says, any of those things.
Yeah, see us as individuals, I think is key. And then, like you said, the relationship that we feel we can trust their approach and that they have their best knowledge in mind, and even reach out to somebody else if they're not quite sure about their approach, I think is super important. And I'm so glad we're talking about this today, because 3 of my good friends have been diagnosed with breast cancer in various stages and various severities of stages. And they're going, all 3 go different paths to deal with the cancer, that the breast cancer that they have. I want to ask you, what is a septic shock? What did you call it?
So, what happened was something in the chemo and it was one of the specific drugs. And we're pretty sure we know which one it is, but it's not like we want to try it again to make sure. It caused a hole in my colon. And so that ucky stuff that's in your colon got into my body. Your body doesn't like that ucky stuff being in there. And so I developed an infection, which is called sepsis. Then when that progresses, it's called septic shock. And about 75% of the time it is fatal, because what happens when you get septic shock is your organs start to shut down. And my kidneys were what has been very severely affected. They're still working. So it's not like I have to have a transplant or anything. They're just cranky. But like my heart, oh my gosh, my heart is as healthy as it was the day before I started all of this. And I have an echo every 6 months. So we know my heart is healthy, but yeah, so septic shock, it's, and like one of the things, like I became tachycardic. And so my very healthy heart was beating at about 200 beats a minute. And I remember feeling that it was like, I'm going to fly away. But yeah, with septic shock is just, so it's a massive infection that is spreading throughout your body.
Because somebody who doesn't know that is listening to the show and are like, oh, do I need to Google it? No, I'm like, no, we got Deb right here. She can talk about that.
Well, and, the only way to treat it, obviously they did surgery to fix the hole, but is IV antibiotics, because it takes the antibiotics you have to take are so strong. And then I got sepsis one other time, and fortunately, it was like, hello, danger. And so, it didn't turn into septic shock, but I was hospitalized for 7 days simply because I needed to have IV antibiotics. And that was just the easiest way to get them. I was bored to tears because I felt fine, except for, this IV that was attached to me.
Not everybody responds like Deb to the situation where it's like, cancer, I got no time for you.
I know.
No, I'm bored in here being IV'd for 7 days, because most people have fear.
They do.
When they hear the diagnosis, fear. How do you cope with fear? And what advice would you give others struggling with this, oh my God, moment?
Yeah. Okay. It is 110% natural to have fear. In fact, it's a little strange if you don't. Now, I've been annoyed, all of those various things, but that fear is there. And I'll tell you, that fear is always there, because my stage 4 diagnosis means that it does not go away. It's this shadow that is back there behind me. Now, I've made several of the big time frames, if you get past this type of things. And so doing very well with all of that. But that fear is always there. And I think that we have to honor ourselves and give ourselves the grace to feel that, because it is natural. And of course, we have to remember those who love us are going to feel that fear also. Because anybody hears the word cancer. I mean, I actually have 3 cancers. I also had a little bout of skin cancer, which really was easy to treat. I mean, we went, but and I told him, you better not mess up my tattoo, right? Because it's my warrior tattoo. But even at that, you hear that word cancer and you think, I'm going to die. Well, then it's, what are we going to do to keep that from happening?
Absolutely. That's such a good way to look at it. And we haven't talked about your business, and we're getting into this, but how have your business skills helped you deal with cancer? And what can others learn from how you approached it?
Well, I kept working the whole time, except when I was really, really sick, right? And I tell people hospitals and doctors' offices have really good Wi-Fi. I still have treatment every 21 days. I go in, I have a port in my shoulder, they hook me up, and I'm sitting there working on my phone the whole time. And I think part of that is it keeps you focused on something else. And, and so you're working. My clients are the most wonderful clients in the world. Rather than saying, we don't think you can do the work, or even saying we want you to focus on healing, they said, what can we do to help? And that is, of course, really who you want to be working with. But yeah, it's you do what you have to do.
I like the idea of keeping busy because it keeps your mind occupied instead of saying, oh, now here I'm sitting in this terrible gray room or green room and all the thoughts, and you see other people around you perhaps as well. And I love that idea. If you can do this, it's golden. It's golden. Now, which brings us to Trying Not to Die.LIVE. Did I say this right?
So it's tryingnottodie.live because we're living, right? And so thank you so much. This is an initiative that I started about 2.5 years ago where, and it came about from my mother, who, came out obviously when I was so very ill, and I'm an only child. So, she was obviously going to be here. And one of the times when one of my wonderful medical people came and went, I got the mother look, the disapproving. And I'm like, what? And she said, you did not say thank you. And I said, oh, for heaven's sakes, Mom, I'm trying to not die. But later on, I thought about that. And I thought, that is so true. When we have something that is very serious that's going on, cancer, whatever it is, we get so focused on trying to not die that we forget that we have to live. It might be 5 hours, might be 50 years, but how are we going to live as opposed to how are we going to die? And so that's why we started this initiative called tryingnottodie.live.
And how does Trying Not to Die.live help people?
Sure. So it is primarily for people who have cancer, but it is obviously any of the advice is for anybody. We have lots of resources. It's a support system, things like that. It's for the people who have cancer. So it's for anyone on a journey with cancer, whether they have cancer or are supporting someone who has cancer. I call us warriors. I am not a patient. And I tell my doctors, I am not a patient. I am a person and I am a warrior, right? Like you were saying before. And so, especially, I have just been diagnosed. I don't even know what to ask my doctor. So we have, tips and things like that. We have resources for them because the worst thing is Dr. Google, because you'll scare yourself half to death, right? But we also provide support and resources for someone who, as I said, is a caregiver, a friend, a support system. One of the biggest questions we get is, my friend, my sister, my coworker, my whoever was diagnosed, and I don't know what to do. And they don't, they think, well, it might upset us if they talk about it. It might, they don't know what to say, all these various things. So what they do is nothing. And then we think they don't love us. And of course, couldn't be further from the truth. But part of it too is we, as the warrior, don't want to say, here's how I'm feeling, because we don't want to be whining. We don't want to be bitching. We don't want to be complaining, all of those various things. And, it's so important that as the warrior, we're building our tribes and having those support people around us who are going to say, I am sorry this happened to you, and here's how I can help.
I like that, because instead of saying, here I show up with a casserole in my hand and saying, here's some food, because I don't know what to say.
And you know what? That's okay. That is perfectly fine. That's better than, just tell us if there's something I can do. Because your brain can't grasp that. Or you're thinking, I don't want to be a bother. I don't want all those things. But if you show up with a casserole, I'm going to go, cool, right? I might put it in the freezer. I might not eat it. we had people who delivered food that I couldn't eat for a variety of reasons. My husband thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And so he ate it, right? So, it was not that it went to waste. Or do you want me to go to the grocery store? Do you want me to go with you to the doctor? Do you need somebody to drive you? And just all of these things, because the warrior can grasp those. Now I might say, I don't need somebody to drive me, but, and then I'm going to come up with something else. But yeah, just saying, tell me what you need. You're almost never going to have somebody follow up.
Yeah, which ties a little bit in with my next question is how important is a support system on your cancer journey? And what advice do you have for someone trying to build a supportive network? How do you do that? Because that can be hard. You don't want to harp on your friends the whole time.
It is. It's so hard. And especially, I'm going into year 9 of dealing with this, right? And I'm thinking, these people don't want to hear about this anymore. I don't want to hear about it anymore. But one of the things I hear a lot from someone who has cancer is, I feel so alone. And it's because we have pushed people away. We haven't been honest. How are you doing today? Fine. Right?
Oh God,
I hate
fine.
that word.
Yep.
Yes, I think that's the worst 4-letter word we can say. And so it is important to think about, who do you need? And it's going to change. If you need a driver, if you need a cook. One of my friends said her friend showed up and said, "We're cleaning your house." And she was mortified. And then she went, "Cool." Right. But yeah, it's about being honest with your friends and saying, I need somebody to come sit with me. Want to come watch a movie. I had people who, one of the things that I was told was I needed to get outside, get fresh air and sunshine, and go for walks, right? But I was using a walker, and to say I was unsteady would have been an understatement. So I couldn't go by myself. So I posted on Facebook, walkers needed. Someone to come walk me for 15 minutes every day. And we've got a gorgeous trail out here. But I said, someone to come walk me for 15 to 20 minutes, leash provided. And, because you got to be funny with it, right? And some days I had, more than one person who said I can be there. And some days I didn't have anybody. But again, that gave them something to think about. But yeah, you have to build that tribe. And that includes your medical people. Who do you want serving you? It is because they are part of that tribe also. Every tribe has healers.
If you've ever felt stuck in your routine and not sure how to move forward, Kathy's story might hit home. At 61, Kathy felt like she'd hit a wall. She's been always active, but nothing seems to work anymore. That's when she found the Pursue Your Spark Blueprint. The course wasn't just about fitness, but about shifting her mindset. Kathy learned to break free from old habits and make small, manageable changes that fit her life. Now she's feeling stronger than she has in years. If you've been feeling stuck like Kathy, take a look at the blueprint and see how it can help you break through. I'll leave a link in the show notes. Yeah. How do you feel about people giving you, air quotes, advice for your treatment or for, I know, because I was just telling you.
Grandma had.
Yes. One of those stories. Thank you.
I always know that they mean well. So that's how I take it. And I thank them for that. Most of the time it doesn't pertain. But every once in a while there's a something to say, "Ooh, cool. Never thought of doing that." But they all mean well. And so that's the thing. And now I did have, I had one person who had a protein drink that was going to cure me. And he was a friend. And I said, "Oh, thank you so much." But, and just kind of let it drop. And then, but she wouldn't let up and she wouldn't let up, and it was one thing to say it was a protein drink because everybody needs protein, right? That's not a bad thing. But she really it was going to cure my cancer. And she lit into that and kept, it's going to cure you. And I finally was just a little rude. And I said, "I'm sorry, but if you had the cure for cancer, you're not selling it out of the trunk of your car." And then, of course, so much for that friendship, right? But yeah, the vast majority of the time, even when it's stuff that you're reading it going, "Ooh, no." I mean, they meant well when they were trying to help. And so that's what I always take it with. But I also watch when I'm giving advice or telling stories or doing whatever to say, now this was my experience, so that they know, okay, it could be different, and it will be different.
And it will be different with everybody that we know. And I don't know if you know that, but I'm a certified Pilates breast cancer survivor coach.
Yay!
So I have coached women in Pilates one-on-one, not virtual. So I'm always like, if this is a situation, I prefer not to be virtual.
Right.
And I live in Maryland, so it's not accessible to everybody. But at one point down the lane from myself, I just kept encountering all these women that had breast cancer. And I was like, I need to learn more about this, how to help these women move after.
Yes, the stretching and the movement is such an issue, especially if they had a radical mastectomy, because those muscles are gone. They're different, all sorts of things. So I love that you do that. That is fantastic.
And so most people don't look into this because I don't talk that much about it unless it's October. And every year in October, I try to have an episode on breast cancer. But how did you move? What did you think about your exercise? Did you think about it? What did you do?
I ended up having to go for actual physical therapy a couple of times because I did do a double mastectomy. I chose not to have reconstructive surgery. Part of it was because I'm old. And to be honest, I've never talked to anybody who had it where it went well. Now, that said, so many people have absolutely no issue. So that's, but again, do your research. But I thought, and I had decided on the double because I didn't want to be lopsided and I didn't want to worry about the other one, right? It's like, nope, let's just make this easy. And I do have this port in my shoulder. So it's this, thing that's in there. And at one point, actually twice now, my shoulder has completely frozen up. Now, had I been moving and doing exercises, right, that would have helped it. But, and I've gone in a couple of times for physical therapy, but, it is one of those where you have to keep moving.
Yep.
At whatever, but it's, you do want to be careful and not push it too far. I mean, this is because you don't want to do any damage, but just keep that movement going, and try for a little bit more every day. And one of the things that I continually am doing is just stretching, putting my arm above my head, I have far better range of motion than most people because I sit and I watch TV with my arm on my head, right? So I'm stretching just right here and I can feel this stretching along in here. And then I'll reach back, right? And go even further just to the point where it goes, So
you need to know that Deb's hand, if you're not watching the video, because we hope you do, she had her arm over her head in a passive stretch, just resting her arm on her head. And then she reached back to her neck. So she basically stretched her tricep and the armpits, as I like to collectively call.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I feel that in this whole area. And then of course, you do it with the other side too, because like I said, I had both sides done, but whatever you have done, and what I should have been doing was some of that, even when I was in the hospital. Just to keep things going and keep things moving. But because that is one of the biggest issues for somebody after all of this is their body goes, oh, it's very different now. And so you do that.
You also have to think about, like you said, cancer is different for everybody. So some people have to worry about lymphedema. Others have to worry about the burns that they have from therapy. Others don't have that. The next person has reconstructive surgery with a tram flap and all these different things. And that affects what kind of exercises you do. But so if you're listening to this and you're looking for somebody aside from me, really look for a certified breast cancer, Pilates breast cancer coach with extensive training and experience.
And it can't just be a Pilates or massage or something like that because our bodies are very different now. I know somebody who has pretty severe lymphedema and she has to go in and have manual drainage, which sounds absolutely horrible. And she wears the compression sleeve all the time. You know, knock on wood, I have had no problems with that. But it is something that you kind of watch just because it can all of a sudden your body can go, oh, hello, let's have a new problem today. But yeah, you need to make sure that the person who you are working with is trained to do that.
Yeah, because not at some point, physical therapy is for some people running out, and then you're like, well, what am I going to do now?
Right.
And you can learn the exercises and do them on your own.
Yep.
Once you know exactly what you need to do.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's not like you have to come to a coach all the time. Now, what advice would you give someone who feels overwhelmed and disconnected after a cancer diagnosis?
You know, one of the things that I think we don't talk enough about, and we are finally talking enough about things, is the mental health aspects. You know, this is something that is truly life altering. And sometimes you need a little bit of help. And if anything, it means you are strong because you were able to ask for help. So if you need that, you know, whether it's a mental health counselor, for someone, it might be a clergy, you know, a priest, a minister. Sometimes it's a support group, you know, things like that. But it is perfectly fine to ask for help. And I think we, especially as women, we don't do that. We don't, you know, because we're busy, right? We're taking care of this and we're doing that and right. But we have to take care of ourselves first before we can take care of anybody else in our life. And if that means we need extra help, then get extra help. And there is nothing wrong with that.
And I like that you address specifically that the mental part, because first there is fear, then there's anger.
Right.
And
it's
then
like the stages of grief.
Yes. And then you're like sitting there and you feel so lonely. And even though you have people around and do whatever they're doing, but you feel lonely and withdrawn. So it is super important. I love that you touched on that.
Well, and there's definitely the why the heck did this happen to me?
Excellent.
Yeah. And then it's, what did I do to cause it? Nobody did anything to cause it. Just don't go there. You did not do anything to do this to yourself. Yeah. But we still think that. If I exercised more, if I ate better, if you did all those, tell that little voice to go away. But sometimes that little voice needs a little help to go away.
Absolutely. Deb, tell us about the Bear Hug Care Package.
Well, for those who are on the camera, who are watching, this is our bear. The bear is named Warrior, of course. And we have these care packages that someone can buy for someone else to send them a bear hug. And we also have ways for people to request them for themselves, because we've had people who, it breaks your heart. They say they don't have anybody to send them one. So we have ways to send them to people. But it's the little bear. It's, I think, about 5 inches tall and the most snuggly, cuddly bear ever, right? But and then it comes with other things like lip balm, temporary tattoos that are inspirational, things like that. But the concept is sometimes we just need a hug. Right. But more importantly, hugs are really good for us. It helps us. There's physical and emotional reasons that hugs are good. I had little stuffed animals when I was in the hospital. A couple of friends sent them. They went everywhere with me. I'd go for treatment. I'd go for this, go for that. And there'd go my little stuffed animals. The important thing was I never felt alone. And that's what we want to do with our bear hugs, is make sure that people know they're not alone.
I love that idea. When I read this, I was like, we definitely have to mention this on the show. Do you deliver overseas or within the U.S.?
So far, we've only had people who have requested them in the U.S., but we can talk.
Okay, sounds good. Now, final question. What legacy do you hope to leave behind through your work with tryingnottodie.LIVE? And how do you envision it impacting future generations of cancer patients and survivors?
I want people to know that life is truly the only thing that can defeat cancer. We have to be in charge of what we are doing. And we don't have to go alone, and hopefully I'm showing people that there are ways that we can get through this. And again, maybe it's just 5 hours, but maybe it's 50 years. And so how can we do this, and how can we support each other? That is the biggest thing, is how can we support each other?
I love that. And how can my listeners reach you, Deb?
Pretty easy. The website is www.tryingnottodie.LIVE. And there's all sorts of ways on there. There's also a link to our Facebook group. It is a private group, but we do that just to, kind of monitor things a little bit. But it's a great place for inspiration and support. So, and we welcome anybody, whether you are on this cancer journey or not. There are people who are there who just like getting the daily inspirational messages. The link is there on the website.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and your story, Deb. And I'm so glad we met.
Yes. And I am so honored to have been your guest.
Oh, thank you so much. And thanks, listeners. And we put all the links that we talked about in the show notes, so you don't have to pull over the side of the road or anything like this. It will be in the show notes. And reach out to Deb if you know somebody that has cancer, or if it's yourself, and get yourself a big hug. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in today's episode, How Not to Be Fine with Cancer. And we particularly talked about breast cancer. And if this episode resonated with you, and if you'd like to share your thoughts or your own story, please reach out to me at heike@heikeyates.com with the subject line cancer, and share your questions, your story, your experience. And we also would like you to share this episode with anybody that you might know who can benefit from all the gold nuggets and information that we shared in today's episode. All the links to reach Deb are in the show notes, so you won't miss out. And please reach out to us and let us know how we can help. You learned in this episode that I am a Pilates certified breast cancer survivor, Pilates coach. If that is something you're interested in, email me again at heike@heikeyates.com and let me know how I can help you. And with that, that's it for today, my friend. And I'll see you next time on the Pursue Your Spark podcast. Ciao.